Okay, so we're going to run through two quick deals today. There's not a whole bunch of meat to it, so this will be a short session today, um, but does have a couple interesting things associated with it. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is just a one pager. So this is probably my worst investment I've ever made. So this is a buddy of mine, really smart guy. This is a fireplace company that he acquired in Denver area. So he was a owner of a company called Express Working Capital that did payday loans in essence, mostly for restaurants. So what they would do is they would lend $1 million to a restaurant. Maybe the restaurant's trying to open up a second location, something like that, but they only got the money. So they're going to lend them the money. And then how they get paid back is they take half of your credit card receipts every single day. So if you have $10,000 worth of, you sell $10,000 worth of hamburgers that day, they're going to take five of it every single day to help pay back the loan and put up, obviously, the business and other things as collateral, et cetera. So on one of the restaurants that went belly up, this fireplace company was part of the collateral. And him being part of Express Working Capital, he just told the other partners, like, I just want to buy the entire thing myself. I'll just take it over and go run it. So then that became his deal. When he took it over, it was doing a couple $1 million a year in revenue, but it was losing money. So for about 3 or 4 or 5 years, he focused on increasing top line revenue. And you can see from here, he grew it in 2022. It was doing $14 million in revenue. So great. He took it over from 2 million and grew it to 14 million. But along the way, because he wasn't managing the company, he was just managing the top line, wasn't managing expenses, wasn't managing gross profit, wasn't managing G&A, wasn't managing net income. And so what happened every single year is his loss went from 200,000 to 500,000 to 800,000 to 1.2 million dollars. He kept losing more money. Okay. He came to me and asked if I wanted to invest. And this is what he sent to me, this and a couple other things. So I just kind of looked through here. Where can I fix this? He hired me as a fractional CFO as well. The main reason I invested, that I thought I was guaranteed to get my money back no matter what, I put 500 grand in. And this was back when they were doing ERTCs, the employee retention tax credits, right? That was coming out of COVID to make sure everybody was maintaining their employees. They were given tax credits. And they applied and they were due about $1.4 million. And it was due any minute. At that point, you applied and you got money 3 to 6 months later. And it was just like clockwork. Okay. So I did some research on that. And I was to get my $500,000. So when they got that $1.4 million check, the first 500 was coming to me before $1 was spent. Okay. So I thought it was just a no brainer, right? I got 16% of the business for that 500,000. I was getting a 10% interest rate on that money as well. And thought I was going to get it back immediately. Well, after about 45, 60 days after I invested in this, that's when the IRS and the federal government shut everything down with the employment retention credits because they started finding a lot of fraud and they shut it down. And to this day, they still say they're going to pay it, but we haven't gotten anything. The company ended up filing bankruptcy. So some of the stuff that I was looking through, I just kind of saw some stuff here. Some of the stuff that's, let me see, I'll look at here. Installation wages. So they actually went out to new construction, installed the fireplaces. They sold grills. They sold just like the fireplace pits, like in the backyard, things like that. For mostly for new construction, but did fire logs and things like that as well. One of the things very interesting, they had subcontractor expense, so that was for overflow, and some of the stuff was just very interesting. So this is freight in. They spent $356,000 on freight in. Excuse me, more than that. So this is all their freight in, all of that. It says freight out to customers. Freight. $600,000-700,000 worth of freight to customers, which is really, really interesting. So not a whole bunch on income. I'm just kind of looking at this for the first time. Okay, so then this is my highlights here. They're paying $900,000 a year in rent. So we're transitioning from a just-in-time inventory situation, and you don't need brick and mortar. People buy off the internet or see pictures off the internet. You don't need to go see what a fireplace looks like. Okay. So they were way over facilitized. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up if it is. They had 3 or 4 locations and they needed one. But they had gotten themselves into some bad leases that I was trying to negotiate to get out of. But that was all this sort of stuff is you have to manage, I guess the overall theme of what I'm talking about, you have to manage everything. Right? You can't just sign a 10-year lease and think you want a second location without actually doing analysis on it. And where's the world going, right? Do I need a 10,000 square foot facility that's going to cost me $300,000 or $400,000 just for tenant improvements, right? So he didn't go through any of that analysis, right? And then with rent, I mean, you got utilities and everything else along with it, right? So the facilities up here, this is a weird financial statement. This 894, it's actually backwards, is a total of all of this stuff down here. Normally you start from the top and add down. This gives you a total 894. That 894 is all these numbers in the blue down here. Very weird. Autos, again, not managing the company. So they had 15 to 20 trucks. And as me being fractional CFO, I started auditing all this sort of stuff. I found out 5 of them weren't even operable. They can't even use them. So why didn't we fix them? Or 2, why didn't we just sell them? They're sitting there, they're depreciating, and they're costing me about $5,000 to $7,000 a year just on insurance for each one. So it's just stupid shit like that. It's 20,000 here and 50,000 there, and it just started freaking all adding up, and it was crazy, absolutely crazy. The shit that they did. Insurance was okay. Mainly just circled it just to kind of double check stuff. But always a good place to look. Everybody know what that number is right there? So that's when I sell a $10,000 fireplace, they put it on their credit card, and that credit card company charges me a 3% fee. So $300. So almost $400,000 a year of credit card fees. And what was the revenue? You guys remember the revenue? 14 million. And credit cards, 3%. You do the math real quick. 14 million times 0.03. That's 420 grand. So 95% of their sales, 95% of their sales were put on a credit card. That's not managing your business. Right? So I own a flooring company, and I never, ever allowed any of my builders to put anything on a credit card, and they never complained. Right? And now we all have gotten to the point where adding credit card fees to your bill is a norm, especially for high ticket things, right? You get a new fence at your house, or hell, I just had a plumber here that replaced a couple valves and a couple stem valves and a couple things like that, $500. And I put it on my credit card, and they charged me $15. So that is the norm. So any business that you are buying, make sure you are adding credit card fees in addition to. Give them a cash price if they want to write you a check or want to send you an ACH. It's cash price. But if you want to put a credit card, we actually charge an extra 4%. Is what we do.
Was that
go ahead.
for those merchant fees? Is that when they're buying the goods, or is that when the customer's buying? Like when the business is
that's when a customer's buying. So I just
got it. So they weren't adding that 3% back on.
They are not. They were not adding that 3%. But again, so this was 5 or 6 years ago, and adding that 3% wasn't the norm yet. It is definitely now. But again, can you just have a conversation with the customer? I mean, again, with builders, they should be cutting checks anyway. That's the norm, is cutting checks. For homeowners, it's something different. They normally just pull out the credit card and you put it on there. But for builders, you shouldn't have accepted that ever. So that was a battle to change that over, and we started working on that. But everything moved really, 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 really slow when I was trying to make changes. Late fees. So remember, this is an expense. So what the F are they paying late? I don't get it. This was a big, big fuck up. They spent $340,000 just in that year on technology and software. So there's a system there called Odoo, which kind of what do I call it? It kind of did a lot of shit. It could do your accounting for you. You could do all your procurement for you. What else could it do? Did it do scheduling? I'm trying to remember. But the software itself to purchase it was like 250 grand, and then they spent another $250,000 on customizing it. And I wasn't part of that process, but we ended up finding out that the customization was just stupid. There's no reason for it to do any customization, and the customization that they didn't work. So again, he didn't manage the process. So one, you got to make sure you're involved in everything and make sure you hire good people. And he didn't do either one of those. And no wonder why he was losing $2 million a year on stuff. Um, health insurance, that's a big one for me. A lot of people disagree with me and stuff, but if you go back and go do some statistics, go back 40 years ago, about 75% of businesses provided health insurance, and it's under 50% now. And in 20 years, it'll probably be around 30. So the only people in 20 years that'll provide health insurance are Fortune 500 companies and government entities. That's it. There's no reason for, we had 40 employees. There's no reason for 40 employee company to provide health insurance. That's $217,000.
Wait,
Should not
why
be
though?
done.
Wait, why?
Why? Because you're losing money. This company was losing $2 million a year. You got to cut expenses.
But employees expect that, no?
They expect it.
They
Well,
expect
as I
health.
just said, less than 50% of businesses provide it right now.
I would say that
I don't provide it for either of my companies, but flooring company, oil and gas company never have, never will. A lot of small business owners, like they'll go, like for example, if you bought this company and they didn't provide health insurance, and you came from corporate world, Fortune 5,000 businesses, what's the first thing you may do? Well, shit, I want to turn it into the company that I just came from. Nope. Don't offer a 401k. Don't offer health insurance. If it's not offered there already, you don't offer it now. It's hard to undo stuff. So what I would do on that one is, instead of going cold turkey, very few companies provide 100%, right? I remember when I worked in corporate world, it was like $200 a month and they covered 90% of the costs, and it cost me $20 a month. So the companies that provide health insurance, one, they normally only provide it for you. Okay. If you're married with kids, your wife and your kids aren't covered a lot of times. And they cover you and you pay 50% of it. It's a $2,000 a month policy, and you're spending $1,000 of your own money. It's not worth it. And then your spouse and kids not even covered. You can add them on, but you're paying 100% of it. So what I would do is I would keep upping the copay. So if it's a 90-10 copay, go to 80-20, and then go 70-30, and then go 60-40. And then your deductibles go from $5,000 to $7,000 to $9,000 to $12,000. Make it that they don't want it anymore. That it's their decision to not have health insurance anymore. Don't cut them off cold turkey. Just make it that it's not financially feasible for them to even have it anymore. Okay. Same thing with 401ks, all that sort of stuff. If they have it, you got to wean them off of it. If they don't have it, never, ever add it. Never, ever add it, in my opinion. Let's see here. Oh, on Odoo. One more thing on Odoo. This absolutely mind-boggling. So Odoo was an accounting software, and it was kind of procurement and stuff like that. So they had, how many employees did they have when I first got there? 70. And by the time I left, like 9 months later, they were down to 48. So when I first showed up, they had 70, and it was $100 per person for them to be on Odoo, something like that. So $1,200 a year for each person. So the person that answered the phone had access. The mechanic had access to Odoo. The installers, just random people. So we figured out, or I figured out, they just put everybody on it for no reason. And I figured out that about 25 people needed access to Odoo. So we went from 70 to about 25, that 45 people. So I just saved $50,000 a year in a matter of probably 2 hours worth of work. So a great company, $14 million a year in freaking fireplaces. Good gracious. But just very poorly run. And my friend just allowed a bunch of idiots to run the company into the ground. So see, look, they lost $600,000 off of $14 million in sales. It's kind of a sad story. When my buddy took this over, he probably had $10 million worth of assets. And we can talk about that for a second, right? I mean, when you buy a bad company or there's a bad deal or you open up a second location and it starts losing money, you try to fix it, get out of it as soon as you possibly can. Right? You buy a stock at $100, it goes to 90. You're gonna hold on to it, hoping it comes back to 100, or do you reanalyze it, and analyze it again and again and again? Is it worth it at 90? Is it a good business still at 90? Good stock to own at 90? Yes. Okay, then hold on to it. No, then get out of it. He kept holding on to it. It was a bad deal. And for about 6 or 7 years, he kept spending money. And he ended up going through all $10 million of his assets, and he ended up filing personal bankruptcy. Do not ever hold on to anything like that again. You make a mistake, get out of it, take your lumps, and move on to the next one. There was one thing here very interesting. It doesn't show here. Is there's one of the videos that goes into lump sum contracts versus line item contracts. There's a training video on this. It comes into play for service companies like this one, like my flooring company, like plumbing and all that sort of stuff, right? If you can follow this, I do lump sum contracts on the flooring company. And what that means is when I buy the product, I buy that roll of carpet. I pay sales tax on it at the wholesale level. So let's say I buy carpet at $5,000. And let's say my sales tax is 10%. So what's my sales tax? $500, right? Everybody follow that? Okay. The exact opposite of that is line item, where I charge the end user sales tax. So I bought the carpet for $5,000. Under lump sum, I pay at the wholesale level. I paid sales tax at $5,000, $500. On line item contracts, when I buy that carpet at $5,000, I give them a resale certificate. I'm not paying sales tax at the wholesale level. I charge the end user sales tax. Okay? $5,000, and let's say I charge the customer $10,000 under both scenarios. But I got to charge sales tax at the retail level. So I want to make $10,000. So I charge that customer 10 grand. Then I add sales tax on it. So it's an $11,000 invoice. 10 goes to me. But to the end user, it's 11. Under the lump sum, where I charge the sales tax at the wholesale level, I charge the customer $10,000. I make approximately the same amount of money, but I'm going to get that job because I'm $1,000 cheaper. So I tried to convert these guys to that. They were on line item, and it was going to take about 2 months, and it was a lot of paperwork and a lot of phone calls, but it was going to save about $350,000 a year. So if he allowed me to do what I wanted to do, we could have been profitable in 6 months. I would have cut off health insurance. I would have gone to line item. Just 3 things. I would have gone to line item. Excuse me. I would have gone to lump sum, and then I would have not taken any more credit cards. That's $900,000 in savings. 3 things, 90 days. He wouldn't do it. And then year and a half later, 2 years later, after he spends another $3 million of his own money, he ended up firing me because he couldn't afford me anymore. And he spent probably another $3 million over the next 2 years, and then the company went bankrupt, and he filed personal bankruptcy. So it's kind of a sad story. What questions you got there?
You said you own 16%, and when that company went bankrupt, how did that impact you?
Nothing. There was no personal guarantees or anything like that. I just lost my $500,000.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Why was he so resistant to these suggestions?
I don't know. I mean, some of the stuff we couldn't get out, like the leases, the 3 buildings. So we tried to negotiate and get out of those stuff. And I just told him, I was like, Joe, you're in essence bankrupt already. So start acting like it. So I just said, I told him to move out of the 2 of the facilities and just quit paying rent. Well, they'll sue me. Well, you're bankrupt anyway. We're trying to save the company. What are they going to get? You don't have anything anymore, Joe, and the company's not worth anything. They're going to sue you. What are they going to get? Nothing. So he actually agreed with me on that, except it took him about 9 months too long to get out of it. Everything was just very slow. And in essence, it was me versus everybody else. So when I brought up things, there's a lot of pushback from all the other managers and all that sort of shit. So, and I didn't have authority to do stuff. It was just kind of suggestions where I would have fired a bunch of those managers because they were very reluctant to change as well.
I guess I'm curious, just like the psychological profile. Like, how do we make sure we don't get in these situations, right? Like, is it he's hearing the stuff and it's just like ignoring you, and then who knows what the fuck he does with the rest of his day? Like, I don't understand how that happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is, be careful who you get yourself into bed with. I knew the company was hurting, but I didn't care because I felt like in 4 weeks I was going to get all my money back. And then right after I made the investment, that's when they cut it off for all the fraud. And even if you weren't fraud, they just felt like everybody was fraud, and they just weren't making payments anymore. So that was bad. And nothing I could have done about that. If I knew that there was a 50-50 chance of me getting my money back from the ERTC, I wouldn't have done it. Because I was so confident I was going to get my money back in 9 months. I actually put in there that if I get paid my money back in 90 days, 4 months, or 5 months, I was still due 12 months of interest. So I actually put that in the contract. That's how confident that I was going to get my money back super fast. That's a shitload of money. It's not $100,000. It's $500,000. That's a big kick in the rear end. And if you continue to do this for 10 more years and buy a bunch more businesses, invest in shit, you're going to do something stupid like this too. It's inevitable. That's why you do multiple deals, right? You got 4 that are going well and 1 that's not going well. And the 4 that are doing well kind of supports the bad one. So that's why I like buying multiple businesses instead of putting all your money in one and try to scale one. Something weird could happen, right? Like with this one, a lot of stuff that was going on at the federal government was they wanted to do away with gas stoves and gas ranges because it's bad for the environment. So you got and gas fireplaces. You got a federal government that may shut your business down because of new rules and regulations they put into place. So you think it's going good, and then all of a sudden a new rule and regulation comes into place and half of your income's gone. So that's why I like buying multiple in different industries. You just do away with that risk. Kind of crazy though. Company does $14 million. That company should make, because it has installation, anything service related should take 20% to the bottom line. That company should be making $2.5 million. And it lost 500. So it's a $3 million squeeze there from bad management. I just showed you in 90 days, I could have taken $1 million of that. And then you also, the other thing you look at too, and I try to talk to the salespeople and the sales managers. I'm like, you got to increase your margins. We're losing money. Well, we're going to lose customers. I don't give a shit. So would it be better to have a $14 million a year revenue company that loses 500 grand, or a company that does $7 million a year in revenue and makes $1 million? Which one's better? I don't give a shit if we lose customers. Not all of them are going to go away. If you provide good service and you have product availability and your warranty's good and you show up on time and you finish on time, you charge 10 grand and someone else charges $9,200. I don't think they care.
Hey, Paul, what are some things that first come to your mind immediately that can help us prevent something like this happening on our first deal? Like going in with a partner that has more experience than you, maybe not using all of your money and having some in reserves. What are like some top things? So, the first deal is not something like this, because you mentioned have multiple deals, and with one bad, okay, you have 3 to buffer that one, but for the first deal, what comes to your mind?
Well, you're not going to buy a effed up company like this to begin with, right? So you're definitely in business number one. You're not going to buy some fixer upper. Nope, you're not going to do that. You don't have enough experience. I've never bought a fixer upper. I don't have time for it. But if you want a fixer upper, that's business number 3, right? So you're not going to buy an effed up company like this. You're going to buy. If you bought this company, it's taking $2 million to the bottom line, and you're going to buy it for $8 million, and it's already making money, and it's not effed up. So you're not going to have problems like this. And I won't let you buy a company that's effed up right now. I just don't think the return is worth it. A fixer upper to me is not that different than just starting from scratch. One, you don't know if you're ever going to be profitable. You don't know when you're going to be profitable. You don't know how much money you need to get to profitability. And it's going to be bad. You're going to be working 80 hours a week, and it's hard on your life and hard on your spouse and your family and all that sort of stuff. It's not worth it. Nobody has said, Paul, I can't believe you're so stupid. I haven't heard that yet. That's what I'm waiting for. Paul, I thought you were so smart. That's why I joined up for your community. And now I realize you're an idiot. I haven't heard that yet.
Sounds like
Paul,
we-
so you said this is your worst investment. Which one was your best investment?
Oh, the best outcome, without a doubt, has been, well, from a business perspective, my best one's my oil and gas company, which I started from scratch. It is my only company that I started from scratch that is just a success, other than Biz by Pro. So before Biz by Pro, I started 4 companies from scratch and 3 failed. The only one that was a success was the oil and gas company. And me and 2 other investors put in 50 each, 100 each. I forget what the numbers were. So we bankrolled it for, let's just say we put in 67 grand. So we put in 200 grand. And it really wasn't a startup per se, because my partner that I have now was in the industry and he brought a book of business with him. So we were profitable from day one. So it really wasn't a startup per se, where you like don't have any customers or any employees or anything like that. So it was kind of a hybrid. But that's my best investment, without a doubt. So I mean, we started from scratch, and we'll do 7 million this year and probably take 2 million to the bottom line. Me and one partner. And I probably spend 5 hours a week on it. He works it full time and gets paid a salary. That's his full time gig, but I probably work it 5 hours a week. And then we split profits after his salary. So that's probably the best. And then I, just on like an investment perspective, I invested in a nanotech company that is private right now. I think they've raised 120 million. I think they're the first company in the world that has perfected nanotechnology in a wet environment. So they're doing blood tests for traumatic brain injuries right now, and the U.S. government's all over it for military. So typically, when you have traumatic brain injury, it's a 6-hour blood test, and you have to have all this big equipment and all this sort of stuff. And they perfected it to like on the size of a credit card. You take the blood test and you put it in something that looks like a credit card machine, and you get the results in like 7 minutes. So it's a big deal, but that's very nichey. I actually don't like that test. It's great. It's a good start, but I feel like we're going to open source it and just just charge people licensing fees to the open sourcing and allow them to do anything they want. And I bet you my investment will be anywhere between a 10x to 100x on that one, in my opinion. So when you start making some money, you can do some stupid, crazy investments and stuff like that. So you do investments in private placements, hoping that 6 will go bankrupt. You lose 100% of your money. 1, you'll get your money back, and 2, you'll 2x it, and then 1 of the 10, you'll 10 to 20 exit. But it makes up for the other 6 losses where you lost all your money. So I do a bunch of investments like that, 100,000 there, 200,000 there, on all those sort of things. You start making money, there's just a sea of other stuff you just didn't even know existed on investments.
How did that investment opportunity come across your desk? Is it just from friends and colleagues, and just
That was a friend of mine in GoBundance, ex Goldman Sachs guy that runs his own investment firm. I think he's got $3 billion under management now, and that is a deal that was presented to him, and he offered it to a bunch of his clients. He's actually trying to raise $6 million for me for another investment that I'm in, that we hope should be signed here. I invested in an Irish whiskey. Really good, because Irish whiskey is not good normally, and this one's good. It's called Triple Dog, and it's not sold in every state, but it's actually really good sipping whiskey. And we've been trying for about 2 years to find an influencer, and we had Pink signed up, and she kept saying yes for about 9 months, and then she backed out. And then we had Matt Rife, if you know him, the comedian, he's super funny. We had him saying yes for about 3 months, and then he backed out. And that company is about bankrupt. We've actually had 2 more capital calls. There's only 6 investors. And we are at the 11th hour and dotting I's and crossing T's on a contract with a band that's just going to be badass. And so we're actually sponsoring their tour this summer. I can't tell you who the name is, maybe in the next week or so after we sign the contract. But that's literally, we got like $12,000 in the bank. And we run out of money in about a week. So it is, and we still have another capital call. We got to put in another 200 grand between the 6 of us to get us through the next like 60 days. But he's going to do a $6 million raise for us, because we got to buy more product and we got to advertise and all this sort of stuff with this band. So that one's fun. But that's one of the ones, it's like those investments. I put in 500 grand in the nano company, and I put 250 in this, 200 or 250 in this whiskey company. So I'm getting ready to lose all of the 250, but I'm going to 10x my $500,000 investment. So that's why you just kind of, same thing with businesses. I like 3 or 4 different businesses, and then something happens, right? You own a physical therapy company, and 80% or 90% of yours is from insurance reimbursement and Medicare and Medicaid. And they pay $95 an hour. That's the reimbursement rate. Okay, well, the federal government's a $2 trillion deficit right now. You think they may change their reimbursement if it's coming from Medicare and Medicaid, it's going to go to 80? Yeah. So if that was your only company and it goes from 95 to 80, now instead of making 300 grand, you make 30 grand. Good business to have, but you just never know. You never know what's going to change. And so you have 1 or 2 other businesses that'll offset that one. See, I don't think we have anything to talk about. We just had 1 page here, and we almost took a whole hour.
Do you
This is
generally
what-
like to avoid businesses that that deal with the reimbursements like that with healthcare?
That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, because you don't have really a lot of control.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, because I love that stuff. I love all the medical stuff. But you're getting a loan for 10 years. That scares the shit out of me. If you put 50% down, I love it. Because if that reimbursement rate goes from 95 to 80, you don't have this huge loan and you can stay in business. You're just not going to make as much money. You won't go bankrupt. But if you have a 90% loan and they change that reimbursement, you may go bankrupt. Or the other way around that is be frugal. Like, what's your minimum nut that you need to live off of? 150 grand. And if you're making 300, you take that other 150 and put it in some type of slush fund. So when and if that reimbursement is, you've got some slush fund. So I would be frugal for a few years and build up $500,000 or $600,000, and then when that comes, you got some money. But I love that space. God, one of my GoBros is God. He makes 1.5 million a year, just his part of it. And I think there's like 4 or 5 partners, and it's all mental stuff, mental health, depression, and all that sort of stuff. And that's all reimbursement. But he doesn't have huge loans on it. But he makes a shitload of money.
When you say slush fund, you mean like you're referring to like an oh shit fund? Reserves?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Just put it in a savings account. Just go put it in a money market or some CDs or something, earning 3 or 4 or 5%.
Gotcha.
And then you'll feel comfortable after 2 or 3 years that you got 500 grand in there, and then just don't throw any more money in it. Or what do? You take that 500 grand, go buy another business. And now that other business is spitting off 200 or 300 grand, and now when that medical reimbursement goes down, you're still making money on the other one, right?
What happened to the guy who went bankrupt?
He's starting his life over. He's 67. He's got nothing. Smart guy. Good guy. Ex tech guy from Sun Microsystems. Got a lot of stock options. I think he cashed out with $10 million 20 years ago. And made some real estate investments and stuff like that and other businesses and stuff, and it did pretty well. And just got stuck on this one. And I wish I was involved in it earlier, because I would have kind of tried to shake some sense into him. But I got involved just way too late. Because I would say one thing here. So it's just like, you got to have your house in order before you do anything else. So he's losing money here in Denver, losing money, $1 million a year. Think good idea to open up a Texas location while you're losing $1 million a year? That's what he did. He started a second location, hired some people, started spending money on a new facility. And I mean, that was a startup. They had no customers. And he brought on like a staff of like 6 people to open up a Dallas location. And with his current house that he was living in Denver, in essence, he was losing money, but yet he opened up a second location. Like, what are you doing? But he did that before I got involved. I would not allow him to do that if I was involved.
Was he doing that just in hopes that the second location would rescue him from the loss?
I don't know what his thought process was. I just felt like, I'm growing this. I grew up from 2 million to 14 million. I'll open up a Dallas location, and in 3 years I'll be making 5 million in revenue. Like, okay, that's great. You're losing money. I don't know what his thought process was.
Wow.
He ran into somebody at a convention, and they got to talking, and they thought that was a good idea.
Dang. Well, that's too bad. Hopefully something else works out for him.
And it was funny because when I knew this was going bankrupt, I offered to pay him $100,000 for the Dallas location.
Oh, wow.
And he turned me down.
No way.
Yep.
Oh, gosh.
It was like pride or just avoidant behavior or overconfidence. What was it?
Listening to the wrong people.
Yeah.
and not controlling your managers enough, and not, you want to hire good people and let them do their shit. You don't want to micromanage them, but you got to understand what they're doing. And he didn't. He just allowed people to do shit. Like, I don't even think that he was aware, or he even read when the president of the company signed 2 additional leases. He wasn't even aware of what was going on, because all he cared about was sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's basically a catastrophic loss. I mean, 67 at 67, losing 10 mil. It's
Yeah.
over.
Yep. That is catastrophic, without a doubt. I mean, that's why I tell people, it's why I stress why it's so important for people to join a community like mine.
Yeah.
Just because it's just, you overlook 1 or 2 things, and it's just, you buy wrong at the wrong price, and it's hard to recover. You know, you buy a company that's worth $2 million and you buy it for 2.6, you ain't gonna go bankrupt, but it's hard to recover from that. Right? Your numbers all of a sudden get super skinny.
But it doesn't. It doesn't sound. It also doesn't sound like it happened like suddenly. It happened. It sounds like it just happened over like 3 or 4 years. No.
He was never profitable, ever. He owned it for
Oh,
like
wow.
10 years. Never
Okay,
profitable.
so basically, it was like the ship was hitting the rocks, but it was like a slow motion train wreck, but a 10-year train wreck, basically.
Yeah,
Like, I just
what's the saying? They were rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? It's like, oh, everything's fine. While the ship is sinking, everything's fine up here. We're having steak and listening to music when the ship is sinking.
Wow. It's too bad.
Yeah, I know. It is super sad. Super sad. But get in bed with good people and seek outside counsel. Understand what you're good at, and let other people fill in the holes. Right?
Absolutely.
How was
That's
it?
been
How was
valuable
it?
for me so far.
Yeah. What was the question?
Curious.
Someone said something?
Yeah. Curious. How was he able to open up the second and third location? I'm assuming he had to maybe go to a bank to take out a loan for warehouse, etc.
I
How
don't
was
know.
he able to,
That's a good question.
like, if they see the
You know,
first business is not profitable, how are they lending to him?
I don't know. I don't know what he did. He may not have got a loan. Signing the lease, that probably would have been pretty easy. But I don't know how much money he needed to spend on the build out. Maybe it was already built out and he only had to spend 40 grand. Which, when you're pulling in $14 million a year in revenue, what's 40 grand, even though you're losing money? Right. And that's an easy story too. Hey, look, we grew this from, it was 6 million and now it's 14 million. Oh, okay. That's badass. That's cool. You know what you're doing. Oh yeah. Why aren't you profitable? Oh yeah. Well, we're just growing too fast. We got some things we just need to button up. Yeah, we'll be good. Good question though. But those additional leases were signed about 3 or 4 years before I got there.
Wow.
But he just kept feeding it with his personal money. He owned like 4 or 5 really class A pieces of real estate, and he would just sell one every 2 years. Owned a couple houses, sold one of his houses, sold both of his houses. He's living in an apartment now. Yep. Hope I didn't scare you guys on buying a business. This is not a business that you would have bought. This is just kind of, I wanted to use this as an example of all this stupid shit that they were spending money on, that you just got to be careful what you're doing and where you're spending money on. They didn't need Odoo, that big software that did all their shit. Literally, they could have just used QuickBooks for $3,000 a year. They really could have done that. So, all right, any other questions, or we're out of here? And did you guys see that the recording from last week on the Searcher OS is finally downloaded in the community? That got downloaded. He sent us a one that we didn't have edit access to because he recorded it on his site, and then he emailed it to me, and we were jacking with it, and finally he sent me an editable file today, so that got downloaded. It's in the community. Down in the bottom right corner, there's a couple Q&As, so it's on there now. So go listen to it, and I'll have him back on maybe in 2 or 3 months too. So keep using that and keep sending him questions on stuff. Anything else? Good stuff. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful Easter with your family and all that good stuff. And then holler at me if you have any questions.
Thanks, Paul. You too.
Okay. See you guys.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yep.